Want to do great damage? Who doesn't? Want to do absurd damage? Well, you're in luck, because behind today's secret door, the Berserker Barbarian Test Drive. So behind today's secret door, the Berserker Barbarian Test Drive. This is Secret Door, a channel devoted to in-depth discussion about Dungeons and Dragons, and my name is Matt Morich. All right, I have started a Patreon. If you're interested in supporting the channel, your help will be greatly appreciated and much needed. And many thanks to Marcelo, Doug, and Jamie for your support. The link will be in the pinned comment and in the description. And for any test drive, I encourage you to check the pinned comment. There may be omissions. There may be late ideas that didn't make the video. There may be things that didn't survive the edit that I want to include in the pinned. Or there could just be outright mistakes that I make while doing the video. Those will all be in the pinned comment. So a test drive is exactly what it sounds like. It's your chance to see how a character will play level by level. And so in this regard, it's kind of like a build and it's kind of like a guide. It's build-ish and it's guide-ish, but it's neither of those. It's a test drive. It's your ability to see how it will feel to play that character, because you shouldn't have to commit to playing a character based on just what you can see in a build video. That may not give you the right feel of exactly what it's going to be like to play that character. That's what the test drive is for. So in this video, I'm going to take us through levels 1 through 14. This should be very quick. The Barbarian is very easy to digest. There's not a lot of selections to have to make. So I'm going to be moving at a quick pace, and I'm going to be paying some special attention up till level 10. And then from after that, it'll be levels 11 through 14 I'll get through pretty quick. So normally I spend time in role-playing considerations in a test drive, but I'm not even going to spend a second on that here because I've already done a role-playing video for Barbarians called Be a Better Barbarian, and the link will be in the description and in the pinned comment. That particular video comes from a great wealth of my own personal experience, so if you are interested in any kind of role-playing ideas or approaches, is probably the best word, I highly recommend that you take a look at Be a Better Barbarian. So jumping straight into the mechanics, this is also going to be kind of unusual because normally I have very specific ideas about race and all that type of stuff. I'm going to give you a race choice and a background choice, of course, but you could really go with just about anything here and it wouldn't really affect the play too much. The only things that are going to be very specific will be pretty obvious. So I'm going to say, let's go with a human, and I'm going to say, let's go with the soldier. Now, the most important thing, the only thing I really truly care about is that you go point buy and you buy a 15 for strength and you buy a 15 for con, and you put that +2 in strength and the +1 in con. So you'll have a 17 strength and a 16 con. The rest you can easily, of course, dump intelligence or charisma. And the next, it's hard to prioritize whether you would go with dex or wisdom as your highest. Dex is going to gain some support. You don't care about armor class really, so don't get seduced into unarmored defense. And wisdom has no extra attachments for it for saving throws. So you might want to protect wisdom by at least giving it more points into wisdom. But it doesn't really matter. The most important things are that you have a starting 17 strength and a 16 con. And truth be told, you don't have to have a 16 con. It's the way I would do it. You could easily go 17 strength and just a straight up 14 con and have a 14 dex or 14 wisdom or whatever you wanted to do. It really doesn't matter too much. I would prioritize con, however. So wisdom, dex, and con are the big three. Saving throws, you should always try and cover those as best you can. You're proficient in constitution saves already, and you have a high constitution. Your dexterity is going to get some big help at level 2. And then wisdom is going to be the one that's left out in the cold. But we're going to be human, so I'm going to recommend that we take lucky. And with lucky, we're going to be able to cover wisdom saving throws if those become a real problem for us. And because we're human, of course, after completing a long rest, you will gain a heroic inspiration. So that can always be used for a blown critical wisdom saving throw if necessary, and you'll have lucky for 2 luck points. With the soldier background, we're going to get Savage Attacker. Now, the Savage Attacker, that math is included in the math I'm going to give you here. And there's a lot of math numbers in this video. Those are included, but it's very minor. So if you didn't go with Savage Attacker, the numbers just take them down a point and a half, maybe a point and a half overall. And that's pretty much what Savage Attacker really amounts to. So my purpose in doing human in this way and picking Savage Attacker specifically, and lucky for that matter, really, is that I view this, aside from the fact that those feats are good feats. I mean, obviously I'm a big fan of lucky, and Savage Attacker isn't nearly as bad as it sounds. It's just not particularly, it's not great. But we're already going to get something for initiative with so needing alert. I mean, you could take both and you'd be, going first, and that could be really great. Because I think this character is maybe the ideal character to give to a starting player. And Savage Attacker is fun. To see, we're going to be using the Great Axe. That's a D12 weapon. So the swing variability in early levels where that really matters, that one hit really, really matters. And you roll a 2, and then on your second roll, you get a 10 or 11 or a 12. That changes your feeling of the game. And that's really great it's really great for anybody. But for a beginning player, somebody that maybe has never played a role-playing game at all before, you want to give them a lot of fun. Savage Attacker will do that. Having lucky with the ability to succeed pretty much on 2 rolls that you want to do in a day, that's fun. And having heroic inspiration as your backup in case anything should go wrong, also fun. And the Barbarian is a great class to give to a beginner because it is basic. It is straightforward. That doesn't mean that it should be thought of as less. Sometimes basic is the best. I love Barbarians. They're great. And especially if you add some richness of your own, you can do things from a role-playing standpoint with the Barbarian that you really can't do with a lot of other classes. So whether or not you actually give this to a beginner or you're wanting to play it yourself and you're an experienced player, that's fine. I'm picking these because I think that they're good, and I'm leaning on the side of fun as well with Savage Attacker in particular. So one of the assumptions I have to make is that you're going to have about 3 encounters a day with about 4 rounds of combat for each encounter. And this is a real problem for a first level barbarian who only has 2 rages a day. But they've done a very nice fix here in the new rules. And that is when barbarians take a short rest, they regain one of their expended uses of their rage. So that is a very welcome and strong fix. I frankly don't even know why they even bother having a set amount of rages per day, but whatever. At least they fixed it so that the barbarian can pretty much play as it should throughout the day. Of course, we're going to get the D12. We're going to get access to medium armor and shields. We're not really going to worry about armor class at all. And of course, we do gain weapon mastery at first level. That is a big deal for this character because we are going to use a Great Axe. The Great Axe grants cleave. Cleave very briefly if you make a melee attack and hit a target. If there is another target within 5 foot and within your reach of that target, you can make a melee attack roll against that target as part of that attack. It doesn't require a separate action of any kind or use of an action of any kind. If the cleave hits, that target takes the weapon's damage, but you do not add your strength modifier. It only specifies strength modifier. So you would, in this case, as a barbarian, if you were raging, you would still add your rage bonus. We also get unarmored defense, which is, it's nice. You're going to be giving advantage to your opponents all the time. Your armor class is never going to be all that great. It doesn't really matter. You're going to get hit. That's okay. You're going to kill them long before you have to worry about dropping yourself. So that's what we get at first level. Now, I should address the weapon choice here because when the new Player's Handbook came out, there was a real feeling that the new hotness in DPR was going to be dual wielding. You'd be surprised. I'm not saying that dual wielding is a bad idea by any means. Thank goodness that they actually made it viable in this edition. That's great. But the heavy weapon, and specifically in this case, the Great Axe, is the optimal choice, and you'll see why. Particularly for the 10th level feature of the Berserker. It's amazing. And by the time we get to level 10, which is the most ridiculous feature for this class, unbelievably powerful ability at 10th level. And normally I don't get this excited about powers that are that late in a character. It gets a really great power at 3rd level, and kind of almost a bonus ability at 6th level, but its 10th level ability is amazing. So I just need to address Cleave really quickly because this is going to be something that's going to be coming up throughout the rest of the video as we do the level by levels here. So Cleave has spatial considerations to it. They are not always going to happen. They will happen most of the time. And my personal feeling is that it will happen between 70 and 80% of the time. You should be able to get into a situation where Cleave will go off. That's my experience in playing D&D for a very, 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 very long time. However, to be conservative, I'm going to say half the time, and that will be included. So I'm always going to give you the base damage, then I'm going to give you what your total damage would be if Cleave were included, and I'm including Cleave at only going off half the time. So your average damage here at first level is 8.12. With Cleave, you are getting 10.87 in average damage total. That's very good damage. Damage is going to go up again. Damage just goes up and up and up and up with this character. It just goes, the curve is straight up. At level 2, we get Reckless Attack. Reckless Attack, you are allowing your targets to have advantage on you, and you gain advantage on them. Pretty simple. And you gain Danger Sense. Danger Sense is a great ability where you're going to get advantage on dexterity saving throws, provided that you're not incapacitated. So with Reckless Attack, I'm going to be assuming throughout the rest of this video that you're always using Reckless Attack. You absolutely should. Your average damage per round is now 11.7 and 15.64 when you throw Cleave in. Now, that number, 15.64, is 0.9 under what average damage would be for a character at 5th level. At 3rd level, we gain our path, which is the Berserker, and we gain Berserker Frenzy. Berserker Frenzy allows you on the first hit, and that's important to note here. So if you have a choice of targets, always make sure that you're attacking the one that you want to hit the hardest first. Allows you to roll whatever your rage bonus is, you roll that many d6s, and you add that to the damage. So in this case, until level 9, you're going to have a rage bonus of +2 to damage, so 2d6. So 2d6 every round. Now, that may not sound like all that much. It is much. Now, the Zealot, in comparison, gets a d6 plus half their Barbarian level. So you're outpacing the Zealot, which heretofore was considered to be the hardest hitting of the Barbarians before the new Player's Handbook. You will just be just ahead of the Zealot throughout this. But when you hit level 10, everything goes out the window and you wave goodbye to the zealot. Now, you could make the argument, and it's definitely a good argument, that the zealot gets a whole bunch of other stuff, and it's true. But if you just want to do a lot of damage, the Berserker is pretty tough to beat. You also gain primal knowledge, so that if you are making certain skill checks while you're in your rage, you can use your strength bonus instead of, like intimidation is an example, that you could use your strength instead of your charisma to make that check while rage is active. It can be used for a variety of things also, like acrobatics, etc., etc. This is a nice ability in theory, but you are having to use an action to use one of those skill checks in almost all cases. So don't willy-nilly do something like this, because it's going to cost you a bonus action just to maintain your rage if you're not making an attack. You also gain an extra proficiency in a skill at this level. So that's very good. So overall, very good. And I don't want to demean the primal knowledge thing. I just don't think it's going to come up overly much. Now, your average damage here at 3rd level base is 19.4. It goes up to 23.33 with cleave. Folks, we haven't even gotten to our ASI yet, and we're already out damaging 5th level average damage. This is crazy time. And it's just going to get worse. I mean, this is, like I said, what a fun character this would be to play as a beginner. I mean, maybe it wouldn't, because they have no way of it. A beginning player would have no way of appreciating how much damage this is. But I think that they would quickly be seeing that they would be dropping things where everyone else will be struggling. The Berserker just drops things. And so with 4th level, we get our ASI, and we're going to take Great Weapon Master. Great Weapon Master is very different than how it was in the old player's handbook. It's now a half feat, which we're going to put that point into strength. So we'll have our 18 strength. And we gain a bonus in damage equal to our proficiency bonus when we're using heavy weapons. And in addition, of course, as it was in the old days, you will gain a bonus action attack if you drop a creature to 0 hit points or you score a critical hit with a melee weapon. Now, of all the things, this is one of the more difficult ones to kind of figure in how it's going to figure into damage. I'm talking about the second part. It's called a hue in the Great Weapon Master feat. So how often will that come up? Well, remember that cleave is a melee attack. So whenever cleave is going off and you're using reckless attack, that's increasing your chance to crit each time, and it's another attack, which is yet another chance to crit. So by my estimations, you should probably gain, between critting and dropping a creature to 0, in an adventuring day, in the whole day, I am estimating about 5 bonus action attacks from Great Weapon Master. Now, that may sound like a lot to you, but it really isn't. First of all, with the kind of damage that you're going to be putting out, it's very likely, and of course, this is the problem, right, with dropping a creature to 0, because you just never know if you're going to be the one to do it, or you could get them right to the threshold and then somebody else does it. That, of course, is going to happen. But it's also more likely to happen if you're doing the kind of damage that this character does, that you're going to be the one doing the dropping. But regardless, you're going to crit quite... I'm not saying the crits are going to be falling out of the sky, but you're going to have a lot of different bites at the critical apple. So I estimate that there will be probably 3 criticals in a day, in the adventuring day, and that you'll probably drop 2 creatures to 0. Now, obviously, you could be dropping a lot more than just 2. I mean, this is the one that's a bit more predictable in one sense, in that what the creatures do have to get dropped to 0 in almost all cases. So whatever you're facing has got to be dropped to 0. It's just simply a question of whether it is you that actually does it. And that's a thing. But again, with the amount of damage you're doing, the chances of you being the one are higher because of the sheer amount of damage you do. But it doesn't always work out that way. But especially if you're dealing with like mid-level creatures or, not the boss kind of creature, if you're attacking a lot of smaller creatures, you're going to just be dropping them like flies, and this is going to be going off all the time. But I'm just going to say 2. I think that's a pretty safe bet. And 3 crits mathematically is a safe bet. So average damage now at 4th level is 21.95. With cleave, 26.73 at 4th level. And with Great Weapon Master going off 5 times in a day, 32.13. Let me just say that again. 32.13 at 4th level. So just so I'm if it wasn't clear before, the Great Weapon Master, I'm counting it as 5 times in a day. There's 12 rounds of combat in the day is what it comes down to, with 3 encounters at 4 rounds each. So I'm taking that damage, adding it all together, and then dividing it by 12 to amortize it over the day to give you this average. Basically, it comes down to about, the range is kind of similar because cleave is going off like 1 more time in a day because I have it going off half the time. That would be 6 times. And the Great Weapon Master going off about 5 times. So what ends up happening, if you're curious, it's about 5 or 6 points of damage that you're gaining from cleave in that round, and about 5 or 6 points of damage that you're gaining from Great Weapon Master. I mean, it varies just slightly, but just keep that as a rule of thumb. Sometimes these numbers won't apply. There'll be the outlier rounds or the outlier encounters. But I think in both cases, with cleave and with how Great Weapon Master will trigger, it's pretty conservative. I think it's pretty accurate. Now, coming in at 5th level, we gain fast movement, so you gain an extra 10 feet of movement. That's all you get in this edition with the Barbarians. But hey, 10 feet of extra movement is very good. And of course, we get extra attack. Our average damage now goes up to 36.6 and to 41.81 with cleave, and to 47.57 with Great Weapon Master going off 5 times. These are ridiculous numbers. Now, the reason why they're so ridiculous is that normally to get these kind of numbers, you have to be using spells in some form or another. Now, those spells could be very reliable or what have you. All you're using as a barbarian is rage and a feat and a weapon mastery. That's it. And a class feature. So just to be clear, a 5th level character average damage is considered to be 16.5. You're doing 47.7. That's 30. Oh, by gosh, that's a lot more than average, isn't it? It's absurd. And it's only going to get worse and worse and worse. Here at 6th level, we gain the ability to be immune to the fear and charmed condition while our rage is active. And if we did have the fear or charmed condition when we start our rage, the rage ends it. Now, in certain campaigns, fear could be coming up quite a bit, just as Ravenloft, for example. So it does kind of deal and address one of the main Achilles heels of a barbarian classically is their susceptibility to mental attacks. So the reason why charmed could be a really big deal is that a lot of the spells that are actually mind controlling you or what have you, they will say the target is charmed by you or something to that effect. That's the baseline effect that everything else builds upon. So if you are immune, again, while raging, to that baseline effect, then you're also immune to the rest of the spell. So in some ways, it's actually a very big deal for a barbarian. So I don't want to undersell this, but I also don't want to make too big of a deal of it. Very strong ability. Our damage does not change here at 6th level. At 7th level, we gain Instinctive Pounce, which is a nice ability where you get to move half of your movement speed, which remember is 40. Or for us, it's 40. We're human because of fast movement. So that means that you can move 20 feet when you enter your rage. Damage is also unchanged here at 7th level. Level 8, we get our ASI, and we're going for Strength, of course, to 20. So we get a small bump in damage from that Strength bump. So our base damage is 38.3 and 43.51 with Cleave and 49.62 with Great Weapon Master. Average damage is like, I think it's 17.6 or something like that at this level. Yeah. Level 9. Okay, lots of things happen here at level 9. So the last couple levels have been pretty quiet. Now, that may sound like they're pretty boring, but remember how much you just blew up at level 5. So level 6, level 7, level 8, ASI is always a happy level for everybody. You got some nice abilities at 6 and 7, but kind of quiet. You get a little bit more damage at level 8, and let's be honest, I mean, you don't need more, but you're going to get it anyway. At level 9, our rage bonus jumps to +3. That does two things. First of all, of course, all of our attacks are going to do 1 point more, including Cleave, but we also now do 3d6 from Frenzy on the first hit. Our proficiency bonus also jumps to +4, so that's another bump. That's another +1 to all the damage that you're doing for all of your attacks. So that's 3 damage bumps at 9th level. That's huge. But wait, why stop it there? Why not get yet another damage bump? Because now we get Brutal Strike. Now, Brutal Strike is, I don't want to oversell this at all. If you're using Reckless Attack with Brutal Strike, you can forego your advantage. And provided that you don't have disadvantage, if you hit the target, you will do an extra D10 in damage. What this is very stealthily, they basically put in the old mechanism from Great Weapon Master and put it into the Barbarian class and put it at 9th level here. So what was Brutal Critical before is now here. And how Great Weapon Master used to work is kind of here. Great Weapon Master used to be -5 to get +10. Now you're giving up advantage, which is essentially +5, not to gain 10, but a D10, so 5.5 plus the chance to crit. So with all that in mind, and it's important that you remember it this way, your reward is not as good as it was back then. So is it still worth it? No. I'm not saying it's never worth it, but I would be, okay, so your attacks, your base attack is worth so much potential average damage. Let's call it 18.5. It could be that you would have Savage Attacker available to you, so it would be worth a little bit more than that. But let's just call it 18.5 is what your potential average damage is at this level. Okay, that's a lot. So that's not counting, of course, the damage that you're getting from Frenzy. So 25% of that is that you're giving up by hitting percentage is a lot. So the chance you will come out ahead if you have about a 75% chance to hit. So at this level, going against the curve, which is what we all have to assume in doing this kind of thing, is about an AC of 18. That's giving you a 60% chance to hit and 85% chance with advantage. So if you were to be attacking a creature that had an AC, a known AC, let's say, of 15 or less, then yeah, use Brutal Critical, sure. You should come out ahead. What you want is a combination of basically 3 points in any combination. So it could be a lower AC. It could be that you have a magic weapon. It could be that you have a bless spell active. That may do it just by itself. So I'm not going to include the Brutal Strike into the DPR damage at all because it's going to be very situational. And that's a situation that I can't even rightly predict at all how often this might happen. It might happen all the time because you could have a +2 weapon. And, at that point, then any kind of derivation of anything below 18, which will happen a lot, you could almost say that it will happen all the time. But I'm going to give it to you what it would be worth at 85%. And when you figure in criticaling, it actually is just under 5 points of damage is what you would gain from brutal critical, or not brutal, I'm going to keep calling it that, from brutal strike. So this isn't to undersell brutal strike. It is certainly anytime you can get an extra D10 thrown in, then by all means take it. And it's good. I mean, that's a substantial bump. But I also don't want you to just use it willy-nilly because you're giving up a lot to do it. But there's going to be circumstances where you're going to make that all up because it's going to be a lower value AC, et cetera, what I've already said. So it's just going to depend on how what kind of things your DM is throwing at you and the circumstances that you're in and how generous your DM is going to be with you with magic weapons and all that. Let me just also point out here that because the Great Axe is so critical in how the damage works for the Berserker, I would be very loath to give up the Great Axe. I think the weapon type itself is more important than having. I mean, if it's an artifact greatsword or something like that, that's, I guess, different, of course. But if we're talking about marginal to good magic weapons, I would be happy with a +1 or a +2 Great Axe. Perfectly happy at 9th level. That's going to do, that will make these insane numbers even bigger. Just a +1 or a +2 weapon is surprisingly effective. But my point is that cleave works so well for the Berserker that you really don't want to give it up. The only other weapon that has cleave is a halberd. So if you were to find a halberd, you could go ahead, but you're going to be giving up a little bit of damage there. So the question really becomes, how good is that magic weapon? At 9th level, your average damage is 45.57. With cleave thrown in, it's 51.63. And with Great Weapon Master, it is 58.45 at 9th level. That is crazy, crazy time. That final number is 200% over base damage. It's crazy good. Now, as staggering as those numbers are, we're about to hit the one that I promised you was going to make it all crazy. And that's level 10. And we're doing level 10 right now. And level 10, we gain Retaliation. Retaliation grants the ability that whenever the Barbarian is damaged by a creature within 5 feet of you, then you can make a melee attack against that creature. Of course, you are using a reaction to do this. But do I really need to spell this out? Being able to get another attack, not a full attack action, of course, but another attack this reliably for a Barbarian. And this is essentially saying that you get now at 10th level, you get 3 attacks a round. Sure, it's conditional. There's going to be those outlier things where it isn't going to apply. Sure. But those kind of things are going to be fairly rare in the vast scheme of things. This is going to happen every round. So, the thing to remember here is that you are making a melee attack, which means the cleave will still work, of course, if it applies, if there's another creature within 5 feet of and within reach. That's crazy. So your retaliation attack is worth 16.37 in DPR. And with cleave going on around half the time, as I've always been quoting it, it's 22.4. So Yeah, I mean, you're just being handed another 50% of damage. Now, the only thing that you don't get out of this is if you were to drop the creature to 0 or you were to critical with the retaliation attack, you can't take a bonus action because it's not your turn. So that thing from Great Weapon Master cannot trigger on a retaliation turn. But now pretty much all your bonus actions and your reactions and your actions are all accounted for from level 10 forward. And with devastating effect, I may add. I should point out that Brutal Strike is simply not available to you when you're using retaliation, as you can only use it on your turn. And while we're at it, just talking about the character here, we gain Brutal Strike at 9th level. One of the things you could do, you have Lucky, and now you have 4 luck points at 9th level. So, and that also happened coincidentally. So I would never want to use Lucky, generally speaking, for an attack roll. But hey, I'm not saying always use it, but if it were the kind of situation where maybe they're bloodied or something to that effect, and you could put them down again, it's actually a good investment because it could trigger Great Weapon Master, et cetera, et cetera. So you could give yourself advantage is what I'm trying to say. You could give up Reckless Attack and use advantage with Lucky. That's a possibility. Okay, so let me just go over how I have to break down the damage here for you. So I'm going to give you base damage. That base damage includes retaliation, but it's including a retaliation without including cleave. And then I'm going to include cleave, and that will apply both in your attack and in retaliation. And then I'm going to give you the final number with Great Weapon Master. So base damage, including retaliation, of course, but without cleave, 61.94. With cleave, 74.05. And with Great Weapon Master, 80.85. Folks, 80.85. So let me just, in 4 rounds of combat, this character is dealing 320 points of damage. That is absurd. Average damage at level 11 is 26.55. This is 200% over that. Now, from here on out, we're just going to go really quick. There's really not a lot of more damage thrown in. Oh, I know. You just have to make do. So, level 11, you get Relentless Rage. So if you are dropped to 0, you can instead opt to have double your level, Barbarian level in hit points. Nice. Power, obviously. Level 12, you get your ASI. Now, here I haven't chosen anything because, I mean, this is so much dealer's choice at this. I mean, I could tell you take Constitution. There's not really a damage feat that is going to help that I can think of. And at level 13, you get improved Brutal Strike. This gives you 2 more options to use. It doesn't increase the damage. You can make them have, if it hits, of course, they could have disadvantage on their next saving throw, or you could make them, I believe it's Sundering, gives you the ability to, the next attack roll will get a +5 to hit. This now also increases your proficiency bonus to +5, which does, of course, several things. At +5, you are going to get, that's another point, basically on all of these attacks, they are going to get an extra point of damage from Great Weapon Master. And, of course, you're getting another luck point. It says the overall effect of increasing your DPR by about 4.18. And that increases the average damage by about 14%. So it's crazy. All right, level 14. Level 14, you get Intimidating Presence. You can make an intimidation roll while you're raging, and creatures within your 30 feet of you, if they fail their saving throw, then they are have the frightened condition. It obviously a very good ability. Very good ability. I just can't get over Retaliation. I mean, Intimidating Presence is actually really good, but Retaliation still just boggles my mind. All right. That's it. So I love barbarians, folks. I love them. I am so glad that the Berserker is finally a great character to play. It really is. It'll be a gas to play this. If you have a beginner, really strongly urge them to consider it. Some people, it's just not going to be for them. But for anybody that is even open to the idea, push them towards the Berserker. The only caveat, like I said, is they may not appreciate just how good it is. But hey, it's kind of like letting a beginning driver drive a Maserati, I guess. But you also want them to have a lot of fun. And if they're just wreaking havoc on the battlefield, that's going to feel like a lot of fun. And that will probably get them to want to keep playing. And that is all you can really ask for when you're getting a beginning player to play. And aside from that, this is a character I would definitely want to play. All right. Well, that's all I've got. If you enjoyed the video, please like, please share, please subscribe. And if you're stuck and you don't know where to go, you can always search for a secret door. Until next time, I cast bless on all of you.